Hey tribe, it's Steph, and today we're talking about high lunge pose. So high lunge pose is a pose that shows up not only on the yoga mat, but also in the gym. So when you're lunging in a fitness workout or even just in everyday life, we always want to engage through the muscles when we're moving through this pose. So we're going to talk about the difference between kind of a more traditional high lunge and how we like to do high lunge here at the studio, whether we're in a fitness class or on the yoga mat. So usually you're going to get into a high lunge pose in yoga from a down dog position, stepping through. And that's kind of a different video. We talked about stepping through to lunge to make sure that you can get your foot up towards your hands, how you could rock back if you need to. So we're just going to start with breaking this down from the bottom of the pose. So we like to start kind of at the bottom, whether the back knee is down, creating the foundation from the ground up. So you can use blocks here if you want. In fact, I encourage you to use blocks. I like to use blocks for this all the time. So we're finding a neutral position. Let's say we just stepped our foot through. The back knee could be down or lifted. And I'm just finding a little rock here, forward and back. Now, you can't necessarily see it from here, but my feet are at least hips width apart. So a very traditional cue is for the feet to be on a straight line, but that really puts us off balance. So we want our feet to be hips width apart. And then I might even do a little lift and lower with that back leg just to see where it lands. Where does it land naturally? So traditionally, a lot of times we come into this high lunge pose sweeping forward, and then we extend through the back leg. So instead of engaging through the back leg, I'm feeling this in my back hip. Now, that's not necessarily where we want to feel this stretch. So that's a huge misconception in yoga, is that we're stretching through the hips in high lunge. So if you can see it from the other side, if I just keep the back leg straight and sweep through, let's break this down a little bit. My back hip is extended definitely beyond functional range, which is about 25 degrees. So I'm definitely further than that. I have my legs straight, which means that I'm not really engaging through the quad here anymore. This is all through the hip flexor. And then take a look at my core and my low back. So I'm definitely arching in this position. Sometimes we see even more leaning back. So we talked about functional range for the lumbar being about 25 degrees. So if I'm leaning back, I'm definitely pushing that range, and I'm really not engaging through my core at all. In fact, I'm dumping forward. If I were to draw in and up through the core, I would have to step the back foot in and find a neutral position here. So it's not about being as far long as the mat, but it's actually about creating a shorter stance for your lunge and engaging through the muscles. So instead of just hanging out here, getting super low in my back hip and also very pinchy in my front hip, instead of being there, which is extremely uncomfortable, not engaging my muscles and not good for my joints, let's talk about a different way. So let's say I stepped through from that single leg down dog, core plank. I find some neutralization. Maybe I do a little rock forward and back. Like I said, I could lift and lower that back foot. Maybe I'm using my blocks here. I want to roll the shoulders back, and wherever that foot lands, I want to make sure the back knee is somewhere about underneath my back hip. Rolling up through the center so that I'm engaging through the inner thighs instead of, again, sweeping forward, just dumping into the low back. Draw up through the center, unfurl the arms, maybe the pinky slightly rotate in to draw back, and maybe I'm just holding right here. But notice how it's a much shorter stance, especially because I have long legs, but I have a neutral pelvis. My core is engaged, drawing in and up. My back quad is really working here. In fact, this is getting challenging if I were to hold this. And then we like to move through this in what we call a fist of fire lunges, because moving dynamically is going to do a lot more for the muscles than just holding isometrically. So we know that when we're in the gym and we're doing a lunge, this is about where we are, whether we're holding dumbbells or a weight, maybe we're just alternating up and back. But this is how we lunge in the gym, so that this is really doing us no good. dumping into our joints. So trying to make this more functional movement so that we're engaging the muscles and getting the most out of it if we're gonna lunge. So thinking about creating a more functional lunge, and we like to add those fist to fire lunges to add a little bit more pulling motion into our yoga practice. Because if you look at a lot of the poses we do in yoga on the mat, there's not a lot of pulling actions to really engage the back muscle. So that's why we do the fist to fire lunge. Plus, it allows us to move dynamically through the lunge, really get into our breath, and create some heat and power in that pose. So again, build it from the ground up, bend down, make sure the back knee's under the hip, feet are hips width apart, roll the shoulders back, draw up through the center, inhale, maybe you stay at the top, maybe move through it, maybe you keep it down on the ground into a low lunge, and that works as well. But just making sure we're not hanging out in our joints and we're getting the most bang out of our buck for this movement on the mat and in the gym.